The Scottish general elections were held yesterday overnight. The votes were tallied, counted, verified and declared. And it seems we now have the official results of the Scottish general election. Now, there was 129 constituencies or areas being voted upon, so that's 129 seats that were available in the Scottish Parliament. Now, for any political party to achieve a majority in Holyrood, there would need at least 65 of those constituencies to be won by them, or really their candidates, their representatives. Now, I've said it before, and I'm happy to say it again, I am an SNP, Scottish National Party supporter, and yesterday I voted with both of my votes for the Scottish National Party. Now, interesting thing about the main parties in Scotland, that 3 of the main parties are actually led by women. Nicola Sturgeon from the Scottish National Party, Ruth Davidson for the Scottish Conservatives, and Kezia Dugdale for Scottish Labour. Now, he said to achieve a majority of the Scottish in the government in the Scottish Parliament, you needed 65 constituencies or 65 seats. The SNP came very close with 63 of those constituencies won. One of the main really changes, talking about the results, one of the main changes really that went on in this election was the switch of the opposition parties. I think everybody quite knew that the Scottish National Party were going to be returned to power and actually returned or voted for into the main Scottish Parliament party, the party in government in the Scottish Parliament, for the 3rd consecutive time since the Scottish Parliament was opened in 1999. No political party has achieved that. So, 3 times now consecutively the SNP have won the Scottish general elections, and they took quite a bit of the popular vote obviously in this election, but the main change really that was noted is that Scottish Labour slipped down to 3rd place, and so that means Ruth Davidson, the leader of the Scottish Conservatives, she will be the leader of the opposition in the Scottish Parliament in Holyrood. Now, I mean, really looking at it, kind of just to look at it really generally, one thing I'm glad of, one thing I'm really glad that happened, or didn't happen in the Scottish election, was the UK Independence Party winning any seats. They came away with an absolute total of 0 seats out of the 129. The Scottish kind of, leader in the UKIP leader in Scotland, because a lot of the other political parties in Scotland, we've got, like I said, Scottish Conservatives, Scottish Labour, Scottish Liberal Democrats, and the Scottish Greens. They're kind of Scottish versions of the parties anchored in England. UKIP doesn't really have that kind of, I don't think, divide, but thankfully UKIP did not win any seats. The Scottish leader David Coburn, I believe his name might be, I believe I'm right in that. He was saying that we'll get a few seats and kind of start making headway into Scotland. My opinion, UKIP is very racist, very fast kind of party. I don't think their views should, and hopefully, looking at the results of this general election, are welcomed really in Scotland. I know we do get people that are kind of racist and varying degrees, but I think Scotland is quite a decent progressive country, a forward-thinking country, and thankfully, the people of Scotland hopefully seem to have spoken, because I know UKIP were going for a few different seats. Thankfully, the people of Scotland voted, and we did not allow UKIP in there, because the whole thing, obviously every party has talked themselves up and said, we'll win this amount of seats, we'll win that amount of seats, and talking about talking themselves up, one of the things that kind of bewildered me with the campaigning that was going on was Ruth Davidson and the Scottish Conservatives. Now, maybe it's them. Maybe and perhaps it's a good thing because I know their share of the voting went up slightly. Something around about 10% going up, partly because the Labour's percentage of the votes went down 7.2% according to the Wikipedia page that I'm looking at, which also this information should be correct. But one of the things that kind of bewildered me, and I'm really torn between thinking it's right and it's wrong. Ruth Davidson and the Scottish Conservatives certainly put out their platform as being, we want to be strong opposition to the SNP. We want to be, strong opposition to the Scottish National Party. I was kind of torn between whether, that's either a good thing, because obviously, the attitudes of Scottish people are not that great. They're quite negative towards, again, the political parties that are really anchored in England. It's only the Scottish National Party, certainly the main parties, or the parties contesting these seats, that is, of course, like a Scotland-only party, which is, it's obviously very nationalist. It's one of the political parties pushing for a few things we'll talk about in a second. Scottish Conservatives certainly campaigned on a platform of, we want to be strong opposition. Now, again, I was kind of torn between, okay, that's a good thing. They're acknowledging the status of Conservatives in Scotland. They're acknowledging what the attitudes of Scottish people again against the kind of English-run parties, which they are, in my opinion. The Conservatives, the Labours, the Liberal Democrats, those kind of parties who have their origins in England, they're really being told what to do and how to act, and they're really being led by their so-called leaders in England. Because I'm sure if you ask, the main leaders of those parties in England, they will say that they rank above above the Scottish leaders. So that has been my feeling for many years, and it seems certainly the feeling of the people of Scotland is what is going on. And thankfully, as I said, for Conservatives now the main opposition party, again, I was kind of torn between, okay, that's good, that's they're accepting the reality of the situation, or should they be doing that? Should they maybe, instead of aiming for second place, should they maybe try to make more of a two-horse race? They didn't, but again, I think that's being an SNP supporter, and I'm glad that the Scottish National Party have come away victorious yesterday and overnight in this general election. But certainly, it's something that I think a lot of some of the Conservative voters may actually. I don't know. I'd like to, maybe I'll go on YouTube and see whether anybody put in their their opinions about the Conservatives, and whether any Conservative supporters, and there's not a huge amount in Scotland. There is a decent amount, of course. Now their main opposition, and I'll go through the statistics in a minute. But certainly, it seemed I was torn between, maybe they should try to make it a two-horse race rather than just aim for the second place that they were obviously aiming for, or accepting that they would be only in second place and only could be opposition. So the results of the election. It's a strong results for SNP. Like I said, we needed 65 seats to be the majority party. SNP, they won 63 seats. Now, because of so close being quite a lot of majority of seats, although that is 6 seats down from the 69 seats they won last time. Nicola Sturgeon, who is going to, it's just a formality of going to the Scottish Parliament and seeking her re-election as First Minister. She says, of course, because of the majority that the SNP have when it comes to the seats won and the votes that they gained, she's not aiming to go into coalition with anyone. So it's great, 63 seats won by the SNP. The constituency votes total over 1 million, and I think that's from what I've heard on the news, although I'm not entirely sure a lot of the numbers, it might be the first time that in a Scottish general election that over 1 million votes have been cast for for this single party. According to the Wikipedia page, it's been clarified at 1,059,897 votes in these 129 constituencies in total. Again, some up. I think that the percentages for votes have only gone up just over percent of votes, but they got 46.5% of the votes. So certainly a clear indication that the Scottish National Party are still favoured by the people of Scotland. I have to say that I was a little bit, kind of concerned, to be honest, as an SNP supporter. I was wondering whether the independence referendum that was held in September of 2014, whether that would negatively impact the support that SNP had. Although we still got the kind of reports of all the polls and all the reports online that SNP would be returned to government in Scotland. I did wonder whether it would be because the SNP were pretty much the main party. I think it's fair to say, trying to push people towards a yes vote, which obviously didn't happen. It was 55% no. 45% yes in the end, so Scotland didn't become an independent party, independent country. But I thought, would SNP pushing so much towards a yes vote, and it ended up not being a yes vote in the end, would that affect their support? Would that really adversely affect the level of votes going towards the SNP? It seems to maybe affected it slightly. A few seats won by the Conservative, I think, taken from the SNP a couple. I think Labour maybe won a couple. There's SNP, like I said, last election they had 69 seats, this time 63, so a downward trend of 6 seats. But certainly, again, the Scottish people put in their faith in the Scottish National Party to rule Scotland. Again, I'm not a huge political analyst. My friend Alan Smith is actually a political analyst. So, I know obviously in the next couple of days, hopefully we might start to see a breakdown more in percentages of votes. Whether we'll get to know of the kind of ways that the 16, 17-year-olds voted. Obviously, the lower voting age limit now went down from 18 to 16 for the independence referendum, and obviously it's stayed that way. Whether we'll get a breakdown of how they voted, obviously again it's a cross section. You don't everyone doesn't get asked, and I'm sure in many cases, even if everybody got asked, you don't need to tell people which way you voted. So I'm sure a lot of people would actually not say how they voted. So you wouldn't. I don't think you would ever get a true 100% kind of view of right. This is the complete 100% rundown of how the votes went. But like I said, the Conservative Party, they were a little bit stronger than I thought they might be. Let's be honest, I said they switched between Conservative and Labour now for the main position. Labour now into third place. Ruth Davidson and the Conservatives have now got now have 31 seats, up 16 seats from the last election. They got 501,844 votes amongst those 129 constituency seats, and 22% of the vote, which is apparently which is up 8.1%. So it's quite a strong showing from Ruth Davidson. As I said, I was a little bit unsure of whether they really should aim for that second place like they did, or whether they should try and make it a two-horse race. Again, even as an SNP supporter, I kind of get the feeling, maybe next election, maybe the support will be less for the SNP, because I think eventually, and I hate to say this, and maybe eventually we'll see the SNP lose an election. We might see people, even though, again, Westminster and them holding the purse strings and them really controlling the finances and the tax powers, even though there's a few more tax powers coming to the Scottish Parliament, there's still a hell of a lot of power in Westminster. maybe it's like I believe it was 1997 where there was the big switch in England between the Conservative Party, who were in power, to Labour, who then took power. That kind of switch, maybe people, obviously the Conservatives had horrible kind of time, and that's why people switched. But I do fear there might come a time in future years when people do switch from SNP a little bit, and maybe, hopefully not for quite a long time. This is the third consecutive time that the Scottish National Party have been voted into power in the Scottish Parliament. No other, of course, political party have done that in history. So it's the first time that that anybody has done that. I do feel maybe slight slip in the seats that the SNP get. Maybe we'll see it change over. I don't know whether, but hopefully not for quite a few elections yet. And moving on to Labour, Scottish Labour, Kezia Dugdale. I believe she was the only political party leader not to win the seat she was contesting. She contested the Edinburgh Eastern constituency. She didn't win that seat. I believe it might have been SNP that took that seat. It's somewhere down on this Wikipedia page, but I don't want to actually just go right through this page and really go through. It was I can't quite. It's not. It's somewhere on this page anyway. I think it was SNP hold. I think I quickly noticed it there. It was SNP that held that. So Kezia Dugdale, I think, the only main political party leader not to actually win the seat she was contesting. Labour, like I said, they had a bit of a bad night. 37 seats at the last election, down to 24 in this one. Down 13 seats. Constituency vote, kind of decent number. 514,261, percentage of 22.6%, which is obviously more. Those numbers are more than the Scottish Conservatives, but that's all about the kind of there were the kind of maths of it. The Conservative Party won they won more votes in particular in particular seats. So overall, I think Labour, it seems, had a little bit more votes. Certainly, it was said on Wikipedia constituency votes than Conservatives, but Conservatives won more seats overall, so they are now the main party of opposition. Looking at it very quickly for the Greens, Scottish Greens, last election 2 seats, they gained 4 seats to win 6 seats in this election. Constituency votes of a total of 13,172, which is 0.6% of the constituency votes. And the Liberal Democrats, they won 5 seats. A couple of them were in the islands, like Orkney, it's always kind of a weird place. For some reason, quite often some of the Scottish islands, they don't kind of vote with the mainland. A lot of mainland, of course, Scotland is SNP. Quite often in the remote areas, the islands, they tend to vote kind of more towards Liberal Democrats, and have done the last couple of elections. Again, kind of the Liberal Democrats really stayed where they are, winning 5 seats again. So again, it seems that the people of Scotland have chosen to remain with SNP, chosen that party to remain in power in Scotland. I think really, the SNP kind of held where they are. The Conservative came up. Whether we'll see them, any support of theirs continue to rise, but a lot of the mainland in Scotland retained SNP. It was really, I think, Aberdeen East and certainly towards the borders was the constituencies that voted Conservative. So kind of near England, near the border of England, kind of that was the areas that the Conservatives actually won. So in my opinion, I think it's good SNP have held on to power in Scotland. I think it's a great way. I think it's the best way forward. Certainly, obviously, the Scottish people thought so. Look forward to seeing how how this all comes about over the next few years. Obviously, in the next term, again, Nicola Sturgeon will be returning to being the First Minister. It's just merely a formality. But I think overall, I'm happy with the way the results gone. We'll see whether the other parties in Scotland will really put pressure on the SNP over the next 4 years, and to see, I'll certainly see again how the SNP run things. I kind of do fear that SNP might start slipping on. People might decide, we've got, because this is it'll be about 13 years in total of SNP government. I hope not. I can see there maybe a little bit of a political shift, maybe depending on how the SNP do over the next few years, of whether people start to again. I hope not. Hopefully Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP government can do a decent job and really fight back and establish themselves against the parties of Westminster and the UK government, which is certainly something I believe they need to do. They really need to I think kind of the honeymoon period has been over for quite some time now. I do fear that if the SNP do not do a really steady, really good, solid job, then we may start seeing the Conservative Party kind of rise up a little bit more. They had a little bit more votes in this election, but again, hopefully hopefully the SNP can do a solid job and then have a very good result in the next election in 4 years' time. But certainly, it all depends on how these parties interact and how the SNP can kind of make their stances clear and run things in the next 4 years in Holyrood.